advice would you give to somebody like AJ?
That he has a lot of talent and not to get discouraged. He only loses when he quits. When you quit, all the doors of opportunities close. You know what I mean? You have to be game, and then don't get discouraged if you lose. Listen, you just lost. You may have got 30 million.
Joe Rogan weighs in on Anthony Joshua linking up with Mike Tyson for training, and he sees it as a warning sign. AJ is locking in for the Jake Paul fight, like it actually matters. Rogan says that if Joshua comes in with that kind of intensity, he can bulldoze Jake fast, because the size, experience, and skill gap is just too wide. Jake has never stood across from a real heavyweight, let alone one who has unified belts. Rogan's message is simple. Jake is walking into territory he has never experienced before.
Not a chance that Anthony Joshua is not going to just lose the weight beforehand. He's not going to come in drained. What he's going to do is just do extra cardio, and that's just going to make him more dangerous. He's going to be terrifying, and he's going to have a lot to prove. He's going to be very angry that Jake Paul wants to fight.
Jake talks about shocking the world and inspiring future fighters, but even as he delivers the speech, you can hear the reality creeping into his tone. He openly jokes about having to tilt his head skyward just to meet Joshua's eyes. Still, he tries to sell the same confidence hype he uses before every major event. He wants fans to believe attitude alone can carry him through a fight with a giant who has flattened real contenders. Jake tries spinning the moment as motivation, saying that taking on someone this massive proves ambition, but the truth inside the ropes hits harder than any slogan, and facing a natural heavyweight with real power is where ambition meets consequences.
Fight of the year, you, Anthony Joshua, how we doing?
Dude, never been better. This is what I dreamed of. This is what I manifested into reality. I'm here to shock the world, inspire the next generation. We're in the Heat arena. I'm a big Heat fan. Miami's on fire. This is my first pro fight, was in Miami against Gibb. I'm bringing that same energy here. First round KO.
And the Schmo interviewed you there. When you fought Gibb, it was on Fight TV. We've been with you along the way. Not very many times you're looking up at a face-off. So what did you make of looking up for one of the very first times at a face-off right here?
Just looking up at Daddy there and just seeing, how big he is, and just my eyes were kind of going into his nipples and stuff, which I kind of liked. And then basically I was just like, whoa, he's big in that. And then, I can't believe how tall he is.
Is this chain really on the line for the winner?
I don't know if it's confirmed, but I'm down. But he has to put something up too. There has to be something in it for me.
You say this is the biggest upset that's going to be in boxing history, right up there with 42-1 with Buster Douglas.
Yep.
What is the headline going to be when you knock this guy out and he's laying on the canvas?
Holy.
Jake has always been seen as a strong, compact athlete in his own divisions, but this matchup flips that idea completely. Oladipo calls it a true David versus Goliath scenario, and he isn't exaggerating. Joshua isn't just taller, he's built from years of heavyweight conditioning. When the two stand side by side, the contrast is almost unbelievable. Even though Jake has added size and muscle, he still doesn't match the frame of someone who spent his career trading blows with giants. Oladipo says the public will witness a rare sight, a smaller fighter stepping up against a man who looks like he belongs in another weight class altogether.
Jake Paul versus AJ, as though Jake Paul is the bigger in this equation. Not for me. Maybe for MVP, Nikisa, Jake Paul, but not for me. I've kind of marked it or titled it David versus Goliath just because of the size difference. Like, Jake Paul's a big guy. He is. He's 6'1", 220, probably fights around, the 200-pound mark. AJ is an enormous guy. Like, he's a big unit. And I think Jake realized that when they came face to face. I don't know if that's the first time they've ever come that close. I'm sure they've met behind the scenes. But I think there was a realization from Jake Paul, like, fuck, this is a big dude. This is a very, very big dude who isn't coming to play. Like, there was no play with AJ. That was a press conference that almost sounded like AJ versus someone in the top 10, where AJ's taking it seriously. He's answering the questions direct that Ariel's throwing him. There was no, we're here to kind of fuck around. This is going to be easy. Give me my money. Let me run back to the UK. This was AJ's like, no, we're taking this seriously. And that ain't a good thing for Jake Paul. It isn't. And AJ's that guy anyway. Like, I would never doubt that AJ would take this seriously. But for Jake Paul, I do wonder if realization is kicking in, or maybe he is just that delusional where he doesn't care. I do, and I've been sort of corrected by a few people who maybe know better, but I do think the Americans don't credit or rate AJ. I do think there's a bit of that. I remember when AJ did the rounds prior to the Ruiz fight, and there were a few people like, yeah, you're not that good. This was prior to him getting...
At first, people dismissed the matchup as entertainment or a staged show, but anyone who understands boxing can see that Anthony Joshua isn't treating this like a gimmick. His training footage screams seriousness, no holding back, no celebrity act energy. AJ has spent his career facing real danger, real punches, and real championship pressure. There's no way he's stepping into a ring to play around. Meanwhile, Jake keeps pushing the idea that this fight will shock the world. But reality towers over the hype. Joshua looks locked in, ready to walk through any doubt and end the conversation with force.
That is for money, as opposed to boxing, and boxing merit is Anthony Joshua against Jake Paul. How much are the boundaries of safety, Frank, being pushed for entertainment purposes here?
No, look, obviously we are in a dangerous sport. We have to accept that. And obviously the people looking after Jake Paul, if I was managing or promoting Jake Paul, would I say this is the right move for Jake Paul? Probably not, being completely honest with you. But he's put himself in a position, was Jake Paul Mike Tyson a sensible thing to do? To a 58-year-old man, or 60, I'm not sure what Mike is, but was that sensible? Probably not. And I would have said that at the time, but it's the world we live in now. And the reality is a lot of people are going to watch it, but we also at the same time have to make the sport as safe as possible and put everything in place around it to ensure that. And that's what the commission, the Florida State Athletic Commission, will be doing, as will the promoters of the event.
So, I mean, Frank, not to finish on too much of a negative, but it begs the question, if Anthony Joshua ends up inflicting considerable damage on Jake Paul, how much does that reflect on you and Matchroom?
I think we go into the fight. We got offered a proposition to do this fight. Anthony Joshua accepted it. Jake Paul's put himself in a position to take that fight, and that's the reality, Jake Paul. But we all want everything we do in this sport. We want to make it as safe as we possibly can, but we have to accept the risks attached to it.
And this is risky, isn't it?
Yeah, look, it is risky. I think Jake Paul's crazy. I think he's delusional, but respect to him for doing it. And he's getting a load of money.
And Frank, just to silence all the doubters here, a lot of people saying this can't be real, Anthony Joshua going in there, it must be an exhibition, or Anthony Joshua's it's going to be choreographed and Anthony's going to carry him through a couple of rounds. I know Anthony Joshua, just to silence all those doubters, he's going to go in there to...
Ben Shalom gives his take, and he's honestly baffled at how this matchup even came to life. He sees a massive disconnect between their weight classes, experience levels, and career paths. To him, throwing a real heavyweight against someone still climbing through smaller divisions goes against everything boxing usually follows. The sport has a structure fighters build up gradually, but this pairing sits completely outside the usual system. Shalom questions the purpose behind it, because Jake is stepping into danger he has never felt before, while Joshua has survived pressure that Jake can't even imagine.
Look, it's not boxing, so I credit to them and what they're earning and everything around that, and it's almost quite unbelievable that it's happening. But what can I comment on? Like, I'm a boxing promoter. You're talking about a YouTube cruiserweight fight. It doesn't make sense to me. I've got no comment on it, but it's an unbelievable spectacle, and they're going to make a lot of money. But yeah, I'm not the person to ask about.
Chael Sonnen breaks it down in his usual raw, straight-to-the-point style. He says fans keep wondering whether the fight will actually go through, but he knows Jake is dead serious about making it happen. Chael jokes that Jake would try calling out AJ even on fight day, but quickly reminds everyone that boxing doesn't work like that. Jake is footing the bill for almost everything: press tours, promotion, events, because he's not only the fighter, he's the one running the show. And when you're both athlete and promoter, there's no last-minute chaos allowed. Sonnen says Jake built this entire road himself, and with that comes pressure, expectations, and real financial weight.
What happened? Jake Paul will call off the day of the fight if he has to, but he will not fight Anthony Joshua. Now, that's all fine. That stuff is all fine. It's just, it never goes away. There's no ability to make that stop. There's nothing you can do. There's always the new fan coming in. There's always the new fan, and there's a piece of the psychology, which is always talking about themselves. If they ever, hey, well, you think this guy would take this fight? It's only on a week's notice. Whatever that answer is, they're telling you what they would do. Do you think this guy would fight this guy? No way. He'd get his ass kicked. So they're telling what they're telling you about themselves. They're letting you know that they would not take a fight that they didn't know that they were going to win. When the person says, mark my words, Jake Paul will pull out of this fight. He might even do it the day of. Pull out of the fight to who? It's his fight. Who is this mystery person? Did you write? Because I know this is a big category. I just read one guy that said this. But I'm talking to a lot of you, aren't I? A lot of you believe that Jake Paul is going to pull out of that fight. Might even do it the day of. Correct? Correct? Okay. Who would he pull out to? He is the promoter. Who would he call? Does he send an email to himself? Does he send a text message to himself? Does he schedule a meeting, come in and sit down, cross the table and look in the eye?
Eddie Hearn doesn't sugarcoat anything. With years of guiding champions, he flat out states that Jake cannot absorb clean heavyweight shots from Anthony Joshua. AJ's power comes from years of technical refinement, natural size, and high-level experience. Eddie paints a vivid picture. The moment Joshua lands flush, everything changes instantly. Jake has never taken that kind of impact, and no amount of confidence will rewrite physics. Eddie respects Jake's bravery, but warns that stepping in with a heavyweight means stepping into a world where one punch can end the night and the conversation immediately.
You're quoted on record saying that you and AJ must retire if Jake Paul wins on December 19th. Stand by that?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I suppose so. Shit, yeah. Look, I don't see a world where Jake Paul wins this fight. I know that boxing's boxing. I mean, what is it? Roy Jones came out this morning and said Jake Paul can win this fight.
Teddy Atlas as well.
Teddy Atlas? Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, now I'm a bit worried. I won't retire. AJ should retire if he loses, no. No, I see AJ winning this fight with ease, comprehensively, destructively, violently, and I don't see a world where Jake Paul is competitive in the fight, let alone win the fight. But luckily, AJ's not preparing in a way that he just thinks it's a joke. He's preparing for Jake Paul like he's a world title contender. Yes, it's been a little bit of a shorter camp. Yes, we've got to make weight this time around, but it doesn't matter. We should just slide through this guy and bash him up and beat him up, and we should do it early doors.
Just lastly, you said as well that you told Nikisa that he was weighing 290 when you were negotiating. What impact did that have? Did you feel like they would have gone even lower if they knew he was weighing 265?
No, I mean, I don't think that when you're negotiating on a weight, there's not one promoter in the world that would tell the truth about what the weight of the fighter was, and Nikisa knows that anyway. So wasn't like we were being clever, but they wanted him to come to 240. And it's just, don't forget, AJ's never made weight before. So all of a sudden, he's tried. He'd been in camp for 2 or 3 weeks, and he's probably sitting at 260, 265, and it's like you got to make 245.
Joey Knight breaks down the financial side and admits Jake will cash in massively for this fight, but he also warns that money doesn't soften heavyweight damage. A big payday won't protect Jake from the reality of a punch thrown by someone with AJ's size and power. Joey points out that if Joshua lands something serious, the cost could stretch far beyond the check recovery, long-term effects, even career direction. He respects Jake's courage, but questions whether the reward can ever outweigh the risk when the opponent is a heavyweight capable of ending fights brutally.
A lot of cash and can still have a serious chance of going on to earn even more paydays, whereas the damage that it could do to his body could be irreversible for that opportunity to earn money in a boxing career going forward. So is this the retirement bag, or do you actually think you can win? Because I read a study recently, and I believe it said something along the lines of men overemphasize or overcalculate their ability to fight by about 500 times. And I'm saying Jake Paul would probably need to be 500 times better to stand a chance against Anthony Joshua. And I can't get how he doesn't already know this. Surely he has sparred with heavyweights. Surely the recent sparring that he had with the likes of Shakur Stevenson and with the likes of Ray Ford, amongst others, Badu Jack, surely that would have taught you that there are levels to boxing. And if these small guys are able to show you things that you had no idea that you were vulnerable to in a boxing ring, what happens when someone who hits 4, 5, 6 times as hard as that does the exact same thing to you and lands it on your chin? The whole reason of why I know where I am in the influencer boxing scene, in the misfit scene, is because of the level that I have sparred at. I've sparred boys that have gone on to box for world titles. I've sparred with English champions and I've sparred with loads of Southern area champions. And doing that enabled me to understand what level I can reach in boxing and what level I can't reach. And some people might say, well, Jake Paul's clearly more ambitious than you. There's no reason for him to be, because he's not a better pound-for-pound boxer than me. So there really is no reason. And that really does make me think that one of two things have happened. Jake Paul has never, ever had serious elite sparring anywhere near this weight division, or he's had it, he knows, and he just doesn't give a fuck. Maybe it's the prior. Maybe he genuinely believes that he can beat Anthony Joshua. Maybe he's looked at the fact that Anthony Joshua has looked chinny, I was about to say recently, but to be honest, pretty much from the start of his career. From the start of his career, he has shown that he does not have good powers of recovery. Once you hit Anthony Joshua, he does seem to stay hit. And speaking of being hit, he can be hit fairly.
Liam Goff reacts to the list of huge sparring partners Jake brought into camp and calls the lineup wild. He says it proves Jake is genuinely trying to prepare for heavyweight pressure by surrounding himself with big, powerful fighters. Jake even claims he'd been dominating some of them, adding to the hype. But Liam reminds fans that sparring is controlled. Coaches step in, fighters ease off, and intensity changes. None of that exists in a real fight. He explains that no matter how good Jake looks in training, it won't compare to standing across from a former heavyweight champion throwing full power. Still, Liam gives Jake credit for pushing himself against big bodies in camp. It shows he's taking this risk seriously.
My spar, I'm not. Well, who are you sparring though? You're saying you're knocking them out, you're trashing them, this, that, and the other. But who are these people? You know, are they top level fighters? Because if you're, sparring the likes of hypothetically Devin Haney and people like that, and you're trashing them in sparring, it's very impressive. If you're trashing some area level fighter in sparring and bragging about that, that just screams out bully to me. That doesn't scream out, anything to write home about. That just screams out, I'm beating some overmatched guy in sparring. Yeah, ain't I great? This right here, I would imagine that they're definitely going to be holding back. I don't think it's going to help Jake Paul anyway, but I really want to talk about Okolie being in there, because at the end of the day, right, sparring is sparring, and, you see fighters go into different gyms. But when someone is, and I think Okolie even offered to help Jake Paul spar as well in the run-up to this fight. And obviously Okolie has his own fight on December 19th. The same day, actually. Funny enough, same day. Different continents, but same day. I find it strange because although you give Jake Paul no sniff of a prayer in this fight, at the end of the day, Okolie is still in the camp and he is trying to help Jake Paul. Now, Lawrence Okolie was very close. In fact, he was managed by Anthony Joshua very early on in his career, very early on, from pretty much up until he left Matchroom, I think. He was a 258 management fighter. Him and Okolie were like that. In fact, if you remember very, very early on in Lawrence Okolie's career, on the Sky days, and you're talking maybe his first, second, third pro fight, the way Sky were kind of marketing him and the kind of cringe stuff they were getting him to say, and it was cringe as hell, because Okolie is humorous, we know now. Back then in the Sky days, good lord, it was awful.